everybody, and welcome to Books Unbound, the podcast where we unbind books to get their hearts with your host, us. It's Ariel and hey! Hello, everybody. All right, we have a good episode today. I have a wacky story.
Yeah, I've been waiting 2 weeks to hear this story because we recorded with Reagan and Monica last week, and so we didn't do our regular updates. So I have no idea. Ariel's been teasing something, but I have no idea what it is, and I've been dying to know.
As content creators, we'll tease things in our show, right? Like on our podcast or whatever, or like on Instagram coming soon. But I do that with Raylene, where I'm just like I'm just teasing content for one person. I'm like, Raylene, just you wait until the next episode.
And you know what's funny? I feel like we haven't been like texting as much the past couple of weeks. No. It's almost like you've just like put up this wall, and so it's like, okay, I can't talk to her. I just can't like we don't get to communicate until the secret is out. I just realized that just now. I'm like, wait a minute, we've like barely communicated, so I don't even know what's going on.
The last few weeks they've been so hectic for us.
Yes.
And then the other fun thing today is that we are going to be doing a quarterly stats check-in.
Yeah.
So the reason for this is twofold. Number one, we just think it'll be fun. But number two, we got some positive, friendly feedback late last year when people were like, we love hearing about the goals that you guys set at the beginning of the year. And it'd be fun if if you guys updated us like every so often, as opposed to just at the end of the year, we just find everything out. And we were like, that's so true. Plus, you know, the best way to actually achieve a goal is to keep checking in on it.
One, remember that you made the goal.
Number one, remember it.
And yeah, I've been doing a pretty good job with that because you suggested this to me, actually. It was that on my spreadsheet where I track all of my reading, I've like along the right side put what my goals are. So every time I open my spreadsheet, I see those goals. So they're always like on the top of my mind, which in past years they have not been. I'll need to say. Yeah.
It's a good strategy. It's a very good strategy. And then, so I think it's going to be a good episode today. I'm excited. And like Raylene said, we haven't chatted in a little while. I feel like both of us I feel like maybe it's a little bit of the like spring, it's not spring cleaning energy, but it's a little bit that where it's like, it feels like life is starting again.
Yeah.
Like we're all leaving our slumber a little bit and things are like picking up and becoming a little busy.
Yeah, I have done a little bit of spring cleaning though. The other day I was just like, you know what? This closet that's been kind of a mess ever since we moved into this house, today is the day that this changes. And so we just like pulled everything out of the closet. We had like 8 different sets of sheets and we were like, whoa, I don't remember having all of these. So let's get rid of some blankets. Like we just had so much crap. And so it felt really good to just like unload that. So I've got like 3 garbage bags full of stuff to donate, which felt really good just to like get that out of that closet. But that's all I've done so far. I'm really excited to tackle our backyard now that the weather's starting to look nice. Like our backyard, from all the moisture and snow and everything over the past few months, there's just like tons of moss. And I'm like, let's get rid of that moss that's all over my ground. It's got to go.
Lichen.
Lots of lichen. So yeah, I'm really excited to get outside now that I don't think it's going to snow again. Like it looks like we're past it finally. I think we can say spring has sprung, but I don't know. I don't know yet.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. It's March 20th. Good Lord. Really?
Where does the time go?
I swear to God, I thought I was going to look at that. I thought it was going to say March 14th.
God, I wish.
March 14th. I'm living a week behind. And even March 14th feels crazy to me. I'm like, how are we at the end of March?
I know. It was Pal's birthday yesterday. And it's like, how is it already the 19th and now 20th? Like, this is crazy. How is it March? How is it almost the end of March? I don't understand.
How is it almost the end of March? Yeah, that is wild. That's genuinely wild to me. And it was such a mild winter here for the most part. It was like, I mean, remember in like November, December, and January, it was snowing with you a lot more weirdly than it was with me.
I don't understand it.
But then that all changed partway through February, and it just like got so dark, so gray, foggy, and just snow and cold and snow and cold and snow and cold. And it just feels like it's been a month straight of absolute miserable weather, and you just feel it. The people become sad. Okay, the people lose morale. But this week, or the last few days, it's been, I mean, I was gonna say yesterday it rained. It literally was a rainy day yesterday, but there's been a couple of sunny days, and it just gives you hope. It just gives you hope. So I was literally gonna say, if it's still sunny, and you guys can see, if you're on the video version, you can see I'm putting up my hand to where the sun is really shining. If the sun is still shining by the time we're done recording, I'm gonna go for a walk because I have not gone for a walk this year. Because it's been so cold, right?
I went for a walk the other day because I was like, you know what? I had to go drop off some movies at the library. And I was like, the library is only like a few minutes past the downtown area that I normally walk to. So I was like, I may as well try walking to the library. And it was like, like 2 extra minutes of walking. I was like, this is fine. This is great. Yeah. And it was a beautiful warm day. Like I was wearing just like a rain jacket kind of because I thought it would be cold. And then it wasn't. I had to take my coat off for the walk back because I was so hot. And I was like, wow, this is the life. So
this is it.
It was good.
Coming. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Raylene, I want to tell my story now.
Please do.
I'm ready. I'm ready to tell my tale. And it is a really silly tale.
Okay.
So
let's hear it.
Oh my God. It's actually, I just remembered how this started. It's bad. Okay. So basically this is all I texted Raylene basically. Something happened in my life that was so specific that it then influenced what I read. And then I read a book about it based on it kind of thing. And then that is the book that I'm going to review today. So I'm going to tell you guys why that came to be. As you know, I have an electrician right now working on my house. In fact, I just spent half an hour vacuuming because he made such a mess. Because he was here all day today, which was great. Like tomorrow, Raylene, tomorrow he finishes. He's finishing the upstairs tomorrow. So upstairs we'll have all new lighting, like, I don't know what those are called, the light ports, new switches, new outlets, and everything electricity-wise upstairs will be to code and standard, which is really exciting. But because he's here and working on these wires and everything in the house, it made me face something I hadn't been facing. And that's the fact that there are mice in my wall. There's mice in my wall. I'm woman enough to admit that. There's mice in my wall.
Okay.
Is it my fault? A little bit. A little bit. Because it's not my fault that old house that's from the 1850s has rotted in one corner and so they have a way in. That's not my fault.
No, you didn't
But
do that.
I haven't dealt with it.
Yeah.
Right? And I only started to really be like, oh, God, you know what? Actually, now that he's putting new wires in, I would hate for some dumb little mouse to run in there and chew on my new wires.
Can you imagine? Oh, my God.
I know. That would be such a nightmare. So I mentioned it to him. I was like, there's a mouse in that wall. And
there's a mouse in my house.
There's a mouse in my house. It's not near where he's been doing the work.
Yeah.
Like the mouse is in a specific wall. I hear him almost every day.
Aw.
Go up the wall, struggle, come down the wall, go up the wall, go down the wall. Like it's in my office. And I'm just like, I don't think it will affect what you're working on at all. And he was like, oh, okay. Well, he's like, you should definitely deal with that because they do just chew everything. And by the way, I looked this up because I knew that like rodents chewed stuff. And I was like, why? So there's 2 reasons. Now I'm just having fun sharing. Number one is that some cords nowadays with the plastics, they'll use like a soy oil or like some sort of a some sort of a delicious oil that like they can smell and then they get excited by. So that can happen. The other thing, the main thing is just that like beavers, I didn't know this, rodents have teeth that never stop growing.
Oh, I didn't know that for mice. I knew about it for beavers.
Yeah, exactly. And so because of that, they're just always chewing. Yeah. They just chew.
They have
so if they see something that they can chew, they'll chew it because they like chewing.
Survival, basically.
And I was reading this whole blog that was like, cords are so perfect for them to chew on. Like they're very soft and chewy, but also they can really grab them with their little hands. I was like,
that's so cute.
When you put it that way, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I completely understand it. I would do it too if I was a mouse.
So I was like, okay, I think I know what I need to do. I think I need to seal off this one hole, like, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, maybe I'll get a professional to come around my house. Because what if there's something I'm missing or a really good technique or a strategy or something that I could be implementing or he could say to me like, oh, they're not getting in this hole. They're getting in over here. Like I would want to know that, etc. So I started looking into it and there's this company in Halifax called Skedaddle. And they have a really big radius that they'll go
Okay.
to. Thank God. And so they came out, and I mentioned the name just because they were really nice. And if you are in Nova Scotia and need help with like any sort of pest control, they're the only humane company in Nova Scotia. Like everyone else will trap the animal and like euthanize it or whatever, but they don't kill any of the
I
animals
love
that
that.
they get out of your house.
Yeah.
I know. So I was like, hey, they seem cool. I'll definitely have them out. It was $130, I think, for the like assessment and everything. And I was like, well worth it, because I spent probably an hour with the really lovely guy that came out, and he used to work for Greenpeace. He loves animals, and he's so knowledgeable. I know, he was so cool. He was so knowledgeable about everything. And I was asking him so many questions. And I was like, actually, since you're here, let me tell you about my beavers. And I did tell him about my beavers. And like, so we had like so many interesting conversations about like strategies and things I can do to my house, blah, blah, blah. So he was like, obviously a big part of their job is looking for droppings, right?
Yeah.
Like to identify what is the rodent that you have in your house.
Right.
So we go in the back room. The back room is completely unfinished. It has a barn door that a small child could push through. All right? Like, it's just like open season back there.
Yeah.
And he sees some droppings, and he's like, ooh, I do think those might be rat droppings. I was like, no, don't say that. Like, there's something so psychologically different between a mouse and a rat.
Yeah.
Right? And he was like, well, you know, they don't look fresh. They don't. I was like, oh, I hate what's happening right now. And he's like, do you have a cellar or a basement that I can go into? I was like, yes, I do have a cellar. It's so ugly, you guys. I have never shown it on a YouTube video or anything. I will, though, because it's going to come up. It's under the kitchen, so it's going to be relevant to the kitchen renovation. But anyways, so I was like, yeah, come on over here. So it's a very small cellar, and I didn't want to be rude. Like, it's kind of difficult with like contractors and stuff. I don't want to like invade be in their bubble. Like, I want to let them work or whatever. So I regret this, but I didn't go down into the cellar with him. Okay. So I'm standing at the top of the cellar. Can't really see what the hell's going on there. He goes down.
I'm scared.
And he goes like this. I'm standing up there listening, and he goes, oh yeah. Oh, hold on. And I go, what do you see? And he goes, there's a baby weasel staring me in my face.
What?
And I go, a weasel? He's like, and he said, it's so cute. He's white, and he has a little bit of gray on his nose, or black on his nose. And I was like, if I come down, can I see him? He's like, no, he just ran back under the house.
Is he lying?
And I was like, oh no. And I was like, by the way, do rat droppings look like weasel droppings? And he went, yes!
Oh, okay. Well, that's one problem
like, woohoo! And he was like, and the other good news is that, like, they fight mice and rats and stuff.
Okay.
So there's probably not that many. If there was rats, there aren't anymore. Like, the weasels, like, will have made this their territory.
Okay.
And it makes perfect sense that it is weasels because of certain things of like the time of day when I hear the animal going up and down the wall and like all of these different things.
Oh, geez.
So he was so excited about how cute the weasel was. Because remember, this is a guy who just loves animals.
That's true.
So he was so excited. And he comes up. And so now I start asking him questions about weasels.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. There's weasels in the basement. Weasels in the basement. Can you believe? And I just was laughing that whole day because I was like, I would say to anyone who's standing in the kitchen with me, I'd be like, guess what's under us? And they'd be like, and I'd be like, a family of weasels. There's a weasels down there.
They're just below.
Just below. Do you hear that? That's the small chirping of a baby weasel. And oh my God, it's just so silly.
It is.
So I'm going to have to deal with the weasel situation really. I haven't because it's been so snowy and stuff that I can't really access where they're getting in and stuff. And I'm also like, what am I going to separate a family? I'll get to it when I get to it. Anyways, all of that aside, can you guess the book that I read?
Did you read Weasels in the Attic?
I did!
As soon as you said weasels, I was like, I know what you did. I was trying to figure out the whole time you were talking. I was like, I can't think of a book of like that involves mice or anything. And Weasels in the Attic. I didn't even realize you had that book. If you hauled it, I forgot. So
okay, I don't own it,
Oh.
but I got it from my library on my Kobo.
Okay, your library has so many good books. I feel like your library system is better than mine because there's not a lot of...
It's called pretending I still live in Toronto.
Oh,
okay?
yeah. That's true.
You need to pretend you live in Vancouver. Go, quick, get on the VPL.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. That might be a better system.
Oh, man. Okay. So I was like thinking about these weasels and I was like, wait, this is so funny.
It is.
I was like, if I now read Weasels in the Attic, that would be hilarious.
It's the craziest story ever. Does that book even have anything to do with weasels? Like, are there actual weasels in the book?
It sure does.
Oh, okay.
It sure does. So, the book I'm going to review today is Weasels in the Attic. Weasels in the Attic was translated by David Boyd and published by New Directions in 2022. Hiroko Oyamada was born in Hiroshima, Japan in 1983 and lives there still. Today's info bit is pretty short, really, because we've already talked about Hiroko Oyamada a couple times recently on the pod. All right, so I started reading this book, and I was like, I literally don't even know what to expect, and there was a huge part of me that was exactly like you just said, expecting it not to have anything to do with weasels. I was like, it probably is just about not weasels. So one thing that we've mentioned when we talked about the book last year is that the cover is very confusing, because it's a fish.
Right. Yeah, what's that all about?
The cover is just, if you can all picture in your mind's eye, a light sky blue book that just says Weasels in the Attic in a clear white font at the top there. And then all there is a plastic baggie full with water and a little goldfish, which is very confusing because you would more expect to see a weasel on the cover.
You would think. Yeah, what does that fish mean?
So the book starts and it's really fun how it's like classic Oyamada. Because it's set in there's three sections.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Similar to The Factory.
Yep.
And it's very slow and it's a little empty. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a little like there's something missing here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading a review of it and the person was saying like there's almost more to gather from the things she isn't saying than what she does say. Yeah. And I was like, God. So true. Touche. Anyway, so the book starts with this character who gets a phone call from his best friend, and his best friend tells him, remember that guy we hung out with once? He just passed away. And the guy goes, oh, that's so strange. And he thinks back to the only time that he ever hung out with this guy. And it was to go and visit him and see his giant tropical fish collection. Okay. Because he loves tropical fish. And so he tried to open a store to sell tropical fish, didn't really work out, and instead he now just owns all these tropical fish, and he's really rich, so he didn't even have to work. So it's like this really bizarro situation where you're like this really rich guy and all of his fish. Yeah, right? What's going on here? And our main character, who I think isn't ever named, another Hiroko Oyamada trick, he goes over there and he just like talks with these people about their fish a bunch, and it's really surreal and strange. And when he gets over there, it's pretty funny. When he gets over there, like his friend's like, hey, let's go. His best friend says, let's go hang out with my other friend that you haven't met before. Okay. And he's a weasel. And he told me that he got a new arrival, so he must have gotten a new fish. And when they show up, the new arrival was a baby. And everyone's like, we didn't know you had a wife. We didn't know she was like, let alone pregnant wife. Like, what? And this guy's just like weird, mysterious and stuff. And the main character just keeps watching this woman who's like really young, like she's like 19, 20, and she's married to this like 40-year-old and has a baby. And he's just like the whole time is like, something's off here, but I can't put my finger on it. Part 2 is then about his best friend having a baby. So there's like this whole baby theme. Throughout the whole book, which is interesting. Yeah. His wife, the main character's wife, really wants to get pregnant, but they can't get pregnant. Like they've been trying and trying and trying. They're like on the verge of going to try and do IVF and stuff. And it's like it's become very uncomfortable between him and his wife. Like it's very just about having a child. Yeah. It's not really about anything else anymore. So that's like a whole running theme. But here's a quote from the second part where he's calling with his friend. His friend just calls him up and he's like, I'm married. And the guy's like, what? He's like, yeah, we're having a baby. And he's like, this is just crazy. And he starts telling him, he's like, yeah, we're having a baby. We just bought a house, but we've got a big problem. The house has a bunch of weasels.
Oh, man.
Here's a quote. The exterminator told Psyche that they weren't living in the house, the weasels. They had to be coming in from somewhere, then getting caught in the trap or finding their way out again. In other words, they had to find the hole, wherever it was, and patch it. If they didn't, the weasels were never going to stop coming. This is relatable to me. I'm reading this like, oh my God, I've never been more seen in a book.
Yeah.
And this is a quote from his best friend. Once the weasels show up, you're done for. This never would have happened if we'd moved into one of those boxy manufactured houses. Those things are airtight. A 50-year-old house? What the hell was I thinking? Can you imagine how hard I was laughing when I was reading this?
That's like exactly how you feel.
This is exactly how I felt. And the final quote I highlighted was, there's nothing to figure out. We're going to live out the rest of our days among the weasels, way out here in the middle of nowhere.
Among the weasels. I love that.
So it was just, I absolutely loved reading a book that had such a weird little strange topical theme to my life. It was like the most intense version of mood reading I've ever done.
You're like, I have to be inside of this story right now because I'm inside this story right now.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm in the mood for a book about another character who bought an old house that is now full of weasels. Like, and somehow it existed and I knew about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
I really enjoyed the book. I felt that it finished quite suddenly. I was like, which I felt when I read the whole as well, where it's just sort of like, okay, yeah, this is kind of just over now.
Yeah.
It's definitely more of a kind of a slice of life vignette style of writing. And I really did catch myself thinking, I hope she starts writing longer books. Like, I would love to read something from her that's like 200 pages.
That's true.
Instead of like this 100-page mark that the current 3 that have been translated to English are.
That's a good point.
But overall, I really enjoyed it. I personally had a really good time with it, but I do also recommend it to people who might be curious. I will say, it is quite slow and boring. I'm putting boring in quotation marks, where it's like, it's just kind of a guy moving along thinking about babies and like not really sure what's going on. And there's weasels and fish.
I feel like her books are all kind of like that though. Now having read 2 of them, like they're very short, but not a lot happens in them. But but they like, there's somehow like a lot to say, like almost like below the surface, sort of like you said, it's kind of like in what she's not saying, like you kind of get the message that she's trying to put across. Like, I feel like she has very interesting, like, unique way of writing.
Yeah, I was saying to Connor, because I was explaining to Connor, like, that I'd read it and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, so did you like it? I was like, yeah, I did like it. I was like, it is real. They're pretty boring and not much happens, but I keep reading them.
Yeah.
So I was like, that must mean something. Yeah. Like, I keep wanting to read them,
it's true.
Which is odd, but it keeps happening.
Yeah.
So then that brings us to what I'm currently reading. And I have only been reading Anne of Green Gables right now. The graphic novel. Nope, not the graphic novel. The manga. I'm about halfway through. And I'm loving it. And actually, I wanted to tell you a little Anne of Green Gables thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
It was really stupid. Well, it wasn't stupid. It was just earnest. We were driving to Halifax on St. Patrick's Day because we were going to go see my brother who played a really great gig that night. It was so much fun. I love my brother's band. He's the best musician in, I was going to say Nova Scotia, but no, Canada, for sure. So we were going into Halifax and I was like, we were like trying to get in the mood, and Connor put on some like Irish music because Connor's family is Irish and they like listening to traditional Irish music. So we were listening to that for a while. And then I was like, have you heard Great Big Sea? Have you heard Great Big Sea?
I love Great Big Sea. Yeah, one of my friends is obsessed. We would listen to it all the time when we were working at the bookstore together. So Great Big Sea is bookstore music to me.
Yeah, they're a real good time. And I was like, that's definitely, it's not Irish, but it's kind of, that like folk music thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're from Newfoundland here in Canada. They're a really fun band. And I was like, have you listened to them? And Connor was like, no. I was like, let's put that on. So we put that on. And then after that, I was like, actually, the next perfect pivot is let's listen to the Anne of Green Gables soundtrack. Because it's also got that folky thing going on. The first song starts, not the okay. The first song on the Anne of Green Gables, Anne with an E soundtrack is the theme song, which is by the Tragically Hip. I only laugh because the Tragically Hip is hilarious to me. They're from Kingston, which, as you know, I sadly lived a long time there, and in Kingston, no one will shut up about the Tragically Hip. Listen, I've got nothing against the well, maybe I do a little bit, a little bee in my bonnet about the Tragically Hip, but like, they won't shut up. They won't shut up. Imagine you're from the, like, it's like nothing else ever happened in Kingston. They're like, we've got the Tragically Hip.
Yeah, come on.
And you're like, okay, whatever you say,
that's
man.
Great.
Anyways, the song that they didn't do it for Anne with an E, but that they used in the theme song, immaculate. It's beautiful. It's called A Head by a Century. I do love that song. So we listened to that song and I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. But then there's the second song on the soundtrack album is like the actual soundtrack music. I started crying. I never cry when music comes on, but I suddenly started crying and I start going on this huge speech to Connor about why Marilla and Matthew had to adopt Anne and the nature of responsibility. And I was just like on this huge rant and Connor's like, yeah, yes.
Sure.
Why are you crying? But then I was like, it's for the same reason that you always cry when you think about how Harry Potter's love saves everyone. And then he started to almost cry. And oh my God, you guys.
Oh, that's funny.
Such a little mess.
So emotional.
Anyway, I'm loving this. This is really, really cute. I think it's really fun. If I had like a kid, I would 1,000% give them this. Like, I think that they would really enjoy this.
Yeah.
Or if I was somebody who loves Anne of Green Gables and just like doesn't want to sit down and read the whole thing, but wants to spend some time in that kind of world, I think that this is really perfect. If you haven't ever read Anne with an E, or sorry, Anne of Green Gables, got my wires confused here. If you haven't ever read it and you don't really, maybe you don't read a lot of manga and stuff, I would definitely say go for the graphic novel by Brenna Thumler, because I feel like the art style and the coloration and the moments hit more organically to how the actual novel is.
Right.
Whereas this goes in a lot of the like cute manga funny vibes.
Yeah.
That isn't really Anne of Green Gables-y, but is a lot of fun if you already like the story. I don't know if any of that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm really enjoying it. All right, Raylene. What's the reading situation over on your coast?
Well, first of all, I must say I'm really glad that we've had 2 weeks since our last update, so it makes it look like I've actually read something, because I have barely been reading. Before I talk about my reading, I just want to do a quick Stardew Valley update, because
the people want
that's what I've been doing. And I don't think we've mentioned yet that you and I achieved perfection on our farm. We did it. A crazy evening. We thought this was going to take like half an hour. We're like, oh, we just have like these 2 things we have to do. And then we kept discovering more and more things that we had to do still that we just didn't even know about until that night. So it took us like 3 hours, but we did it.
We were up on my time zone till like 1 a.m. on a Monday
We
night.
had to, like, we couldn't stop. We were like, we will not stop until we get perfection.
It was so silly.
It was crazy. But yeah, those last 2 golden walnuts, found them. Everything else, we got it done. And the background on my computer and on my phone is the shot of us like sitting at the top of the mountain at the end, which is like this beautiful little scene. I'm so obsessed with it. Like, it's everywhere. It's awesome. Taken over my whole life. And so meanwhile, I have my own solo farm that I started within the past month. Like, I want to say the past few weeks, but it's like, let's just say within the past month. I've put 75 hours, I think, into this farm already. I just started year 3 and I am like on the road to perfection. Like, I mostly just need to make tons of money right now. And there's like 3 items that I need to sell that I just like haven't been able to get. So that's where I'm at. I'm so like grossly obsessed with this game right now that I've just been basically doing nothing else. But another random like other video game update. Yesterday for Cal's birthday, he got this game called Sunhaven, which is another farming sim that actually has been in like beta for the past couple of years, I think, and it was just fully released. And so we were like, let's try it. You can play multiplayer up to 8 people, which is really cool. And it's more of like, it's kind of like Stardew mixed with Graveyard Keeper a little bit in the terms of the way it plays, but it's like very fantasy. So you can play as like an angel or a demon or like a half cat person. Like there's all these different races you can play as, and then there's tons of different professions you can play as. So I'm a baker. I'm just a human baker. So that's really fun. We played that for a few hours yesterday, and we're going to play some more. So that's what I've got going on for the most part.
Sick.
But let's talk about my reading. So last time we did an update, I was reading We Spread by Ian Reid, and I did finish it. Ian Reid's third novel once again features an unreliable narrator while bringing a new subgenre into the mix, philosophical horror. It delves into topics such as memory, how people are treated as they become older, and what it means to live a fulfilling life, and the importance of maintaining your passions as you age. First off, I'll just start out by saying I didn't like this one as much as his other books. For me, it was a little less kind of psychological thriller horror, like what's going to happen next, and more just like kind of philosophical. Like so I talked about this, what like the basic plot of this is that there's a woman, an older woman named Penny, who lives alone. She had a partner that she lived with for many years, but he passed away before she did, and so she's just been living by herself. And then one day she has a fall and hits her head, and she's been having memory problems for a little while, and so she basically gets shipped off to go live in this assisted living facility. And she's like, why are you taking me here? Like, I don't want to, for one thing. Like, she is very clear that she doesn't want to do this. She wants to keep living by herself. She feels like she's able to, but they're like, no, this is what's best for you. You just need to stay here. And while she's there, like some strange things kind of start to happen. And it's hard to know as a reader though, like, is this really happening? Is it just her memory? Is like, who knows? And so throughout the book, you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on? And things do eventually get revealed and you kind of see what's happening. But I don't know. I didn't really connect with this one as much as I did with his other books. I feel like it was still very readable and like a very quick read. But by the end of it, I just felt kind of empty. Like, like I almost felt like I missed something because I just didn't connect to it. But I've read lots of other reviews where people were like, oh, this is my favorite of his books. So obviously it was just a me thing. But yeah, like it was just a little bit too philosophical, I guess, for me. Like it was mostly just about kind of tackling these questions, and it's just like, oh, like it was a lot of it was about like the main character Penny is an artist or was an artist, and one of her things is that she's like always like painting things and then never finishes them. And so while she's at this place that she's now living at, she's like still trying to paint, and people are like encouraging her, like, you should really keep painting, almost like to the point where it's like, why do you care so much? And so there's like, that's some of the kind of weird vibes that you get from this place. But yeah, it was just fine. Like I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it, unfortunately. I'm glad I finally read it because I could have seen this being a book that like I hyped up in my head for a really long time, and then it would have been extra disappointing. But yeah, so
oh my god, wait,
what?
Hold on, small pause. That made me that reminded me of something I really wanted to bring up.
Okay.
I was at brunch yesterday or the day before, and someone I was with was eating a bunch of had potatoes on her plate and other things. And I wasn't even thinking about it, right? She had her whole meal. The last thing she saved were the potatoes. They were like little hash browns. And she literally said out loud, she said, oh no, I saved these for the end because I thought they'd be the best, but now I'm full. And I was like, I'm dying.
I'm shook right now.
I was like, it's crazy. A mashed potato situation in real life, and she doesn't even know about it. I was like, it's proof that people actually do it.
That's
they
hilarious.
Keep the potatoes to the end.
But also having the problem of I didn't even think of I'm too full. It's always they got cold. I love that.
I know.
That's a whole other thing. I'm like, oh, is that a whole new subgenre of mashed potato books? I wanted to eat it, but I'm too full. Maybe that's when you like read too many of the same genre of mashed potato books, and then you reach a point where you're like, I can't read that one now because I'm too full of fantasy or whatever it may be.
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard.
I love that. Thank you for that story. So yeah, after I read We Spread, I was like, what do I want to read next? And I just so happened to have, while I've been playing Stardew Valley, like I've mentioned, I've been like listening to lots of YouTube videos, like kind of just having them on in the background. And one of Olivia of Stories for Coffee, she had a video pop up on my YouTube, and I was like, oh, a reading vlog. And it was a reading vlog for books that are like The Last of Us, which I immediately wanted to watch because I am also obsessed with The Last of Us and had just been watching it. So I was like, okay, I'll listen to this video while I play. And she read a book that made me immediately want to pick up the book and read it. And so I did. And that book is The Road by Cormac McCarthy.
Really?
Yes. Cormac McCarthy's 10th novel, The Road, was published in 2006, which up until last year was the last book he wrote. The Road won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2007, amongst other prizes. It was also adapted into a film starring Viggo Mortensen and Cody Smith-McPhee in 2009. In 2017, The Guardian listed it as one of the 5 best climate change novels, and in 2019, BBC News included it on its list of 100 most inspiring novels. So, first of all, while writing up my little information thing there earlier today, I learned a lot about this book that I didn't realize. Like, I didn't realize.
I didn't know it was his 10th.
First of all, he's been writing books for decades. And then this book came out, and then he didn't write another book or didn't release another book for 16 years. I totally didn't realize that. So this book kind of was like his one big bang, and then it almost seemed like, is he gone? Like, is he ever going to write another book? And then last year he had 2 books published, which is very curious. Like, what a strange kind of system that he had going on there. Yeah, strange pattern, exactly. But this book was huge, like huge when it came out. And like I mentioned, obviously, like it's won a bunch of awards. It's been shortlisted for other things. And yeah, it was really good. So the funny story about this too is I've actually tried to read this book twice in the past. Like 5 years ago or so. Like I would pick this book up, read like 20 pages, and I just couldn't really get into it. The writing style is very strange. There's no quotation marks. Like it's one of those kinds of books that's kind of almost more like stream of consciousness maybe, but it's also just very like lots of short sentences, very straightforward. Like the man and the boy were on the road. The road was dark. It's gray. There's ash. Like it's just very kind of bleak in the way it's written. So I always just had a hard time getting into it. But then listening to this reading vlog of Olivia's, she was like, give it 50 or 75 pages, you will get used to the writing style. And I was like, fine, I'll give it one more try. And it's true, for me it was around the 75 page mark. It was like, okay, I feel like I'm into this now, like I'm understanding the way it's written. And so I just found like I would read a few pages and then put it down and be like, oh man, this is like, it's not like a hard book to read, but for some reason it's like hard to read. But anyway, so this book is about a man and his son who are walking along a road. It's post-apocalyptic, and it's not really clear what happened, but it kind of is, you kind of start to think maybe there was like a nuclear war or something like that. Like everything is kind of dead, and it's winter, it's cold, and there's always ash on everything. So even though it's like clearly been years since whatever thing happened, the earth is still being affected by it. So that's kind of like the bleak setting that you've got going on. And the two of them are trying to get somewhere. They're walking along this road to try and get to a place that they're hoping is going to be better than where they've been. But at the same time, with apocalypse stuff, it's like they may get there and there may be nothing there. So it feels very hopeless, and they're constantly hungry. Like there's no food left because the world has just fallen apart. But then you have this beautiful relationship between a man and his son, and like all he wants is for his son to be okay. And so it is kind of a sad book. I'll say that much. It's sad, and you feel like there's no hope, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Every time they bump into like a person, you're just like, uh-oh, what's gonna happen? Like it's a stressful apocalypse, but like quiet because there's not that many people. It's not action packed. It's mostly just walking, trying to find food, and the man and his son talking and having conversations with each other. So I really enjoyed it. I haven't watched the movie yet. I meant to watch the movie right after I finished it, but I was like, I need a little break from this. Like it is truly just so like kind of depressing and drags you down, but it was really good. I'm really glad I finally read it.
So exciting. That's so exciting because I think you know this, but Cormac McCarthy is one of Connor's favorite authors.
I feel like I knew that, yeah.
Yeah, he loves Blood Meridian and The Road and maybe No Country for Old Men. Yeah, so I'm going to tell him, and he's going to be.
Oh, tell him. That's good. Yeah, and I kind of have like a mixed relationship with Cormac McCarthy. Like, I actually read No Country for Old Men with a couple of my friends. We did a book club for it, and I was like it was fine. I didn't love it, but after reading this, I'm like, okay, like I can see the appeal. I can definitely see the appeal. I don't know if I'm rushing to read another book by him, but I know that like I can enjoy his books. They just are a little bit more work for me maybe, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, those are the books I've read. I did get a book. My victory is finally here. God. I got A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. My God, it's so beautiful. Exciting. Check it out, bro.
It's huge.
It's really big. So it's like just as big as Priory, if not slightly larger. But they look so beautiful together on my shelf.
Yeah.
But yeah, the story on this is that I pre-ordered it, was hoping to get it on February 28th when it was released, but Indigo fell apart for a month and they completely just lost their shit, basically. And so I'd been waiting for this to show up. I had no idea when it was going to come because they wouldn't tell me. I had no idea if it was going to come because they wouldn't tell me. And then a couple days ago, I opened my mailbox and it was shoved in there. Like it literally took up the entire mailbox because it's such a big book. So and I was like, my book is here. But the thing that makes me especially mad is I was in the mood to read this when it came out.
No, don't tell me this. You're not in the mood anymore.
I'm not in the mood to read a big fantasy book right now. I'm really,
the saddest
really
thing
not.
I've ever
So
heard.
I was preparing myself to read this book by reading lots of short non-fantasy books leading up to this because I was like, okay, I don't want to be burnt out before I start reading this book. I don't want to be, over fantasy when I start reading this. So I've been like mentally preparing myself for this, and now I'm not in the mood for it. So I'm just gonna have to give it time and see what happens because I'm just truly not in the mood for this right now. And
that's so sad.
Yeah. Well, the other sad thing is I don't really know what I'm in the mood for right now. Like I actually have been reading another book, which I'll mention, but I don't know if I'm gonna keep reading it because I'm not in the mood for it right now. And that is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. Completely random. I just felt this urge to read it about a week ago. So I've been reading this for about a week and I'm on like page 100 and I just keep having to kind of force myself to read it, which is not because the book is bad. Like it's a great book. I'm just not in the mood for it. Like it's a story of 4 women and their mothers who were all born in China. And so all the women are like in their 30s and they grew up in America. And so it's kind of, you get the story of where did their mothers come from? How did they get to America and kind of where they're at now? And so it's a like beautiful intergenerational story of, people coming to America and the relationships that they have with each other. And it's a great book. I'm just not in the mood for it now. So I actually have prepared a stack that I'm hoping you will be able to pick from for me.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me bring out the stack.
I love it.
And because I'm trying to like get reinvigorated for reading because like I mentioned, I've just been playing a lot of video games, but I think I may have burnt myself out a little bit on that, so I feel like I'm ready to jump back into books. I've just been like, wow. So I have a stack here and the theme is that it's a rainbow.
Oh, it is a little
So
rainbow.
I'm showing it to the camera so you guys can see my beautiful little rainbow. So I will take you through the books now. I'm going to start at red. Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. That one I was a little scared to put that in the stack because it's a little big and it's kind of fantasy. So that one, like, take that with a grain of salt, but I am interested to read it. Next up is Bliss Montage by Ling Ma. Oh my God, the books fell over.
Incredible cover.
Very incredible. Oh my God, all the books are falling. Sorry if you can hear that. And this is my orange, and it literally has oranges on it, so that felt really perfect for my rainbow. So yeah, this is short stories. So I also feel like it's been a while since I've read a short story collection, so maybe that's what my brain needs right now. I don't know. Next up, Jillian by Hallie Butler. This one is one of our classic, a woman working a job, and it's short. So I feel like this one, pretty drawn to that one right now, just so you know.
Okay.
Next up is Heaven by Mieko Kawakami. I still have, actually I was about to say I haven't read any of her books yet, but I have read her one really short book, Miss Ice Sandwich. So that's the only book of hers I've read. I haven't read one of her full-length novels yet. And that one, very appealing, very appealing. Next up, we've got The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This one keeps popping up in my brain. I keep wanting to read it, but not feeling like it's the right time. And it seems like it would be a really quick read. It seems like a quick kind of addictive type of read. Purple. After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like in moments like these where I don't know what I want to read, oftentimes a rom-com is kind of the right move.
Yes.
And also, I have talked about Taylor Jenkins Reid quite a lot. I love her older kind of romance books, and somehow I haven't read this one yet. So I feel like now could be the time. And then I also picked a pink book because it felt like it would be crazy not to add a pink book to my rainbow. And the book I picked is The Nakano Thrift Shop by Hiromi Kawakami. And what I'll say about that is I haven't read a Hiromi Kawakami yet this year, and she's one of my 7 authors, my most owned authors. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a really juicy stack.
Just going to hold it in front of you so if you need a reminder.
I've picked. I know which one I'm going to do. Mm-hmm.
Let's hear it.
It's a really, really juicy stack because I want to say all of those except for maybe After I Do are books that you and I have talked about wanting to read over and over and over again.
True.
Like, I am not surprised that any of those books are on your list.
Yeah.
I have decided that you should read Bliss Montage.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. There's a couple of reasons.
Tell me.
Number one, it's just so beautiful I can't handle it.
It really is. Yeah.
Number two is that I feel like trying to ease you away from video games, maybe short stories would be the best thing. You could just read a short story and then go back to playing, and then read another short story and then go back to playing.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would be really good. And then third of all, I do think it could become a mashed potato book.
Definitely.
Like,
the funny thing is that this is actually an arc, and it came out September 13th. So
exactly.
It'll be September again before we know it. I gotta read it.
Exactly. So I think that would be a lot of fun.
I like that.
The other reason was just that the oranges look very like spring to summer to me, and I'm like,
that's true.
With that
maybe this will awaken me from my winter funk.
You know what I just did?
What?
I got Connor to go to the grocery store and buy me a bunch of tangerines.
Ooh.
He couldn't find tangerines, so he bought mandarins. But we peeled them and then we put them in the freezer. And now I'm going to blend them. Oh. And apparently you can make sorbet that way. I'll let you know if that works
sounds
out.
Delicious. Whoa.
All right, Raylene. I wish you the best of luck with Bliss Montage.
Thank you.
Excuse me. All right. The final thing we need to do today is talk about our quarterly stats.
Yep.
This is going to be fun. Not too extensive, but just a little dip into how we're doing. So how about you start us off with talking to us about your goals and how they're looking?
Yeah, so I think for where we're at in the year, my goals are looking good. So my goals were to read a classic every quarter, read 6 fantasy books, read at least 50% of the books I purchase in the year, and then to read at least 1 book from each of my 7 most owned authors. So those are the main goals I have. And let me walk you through what I've done so far. So first of all, to read a classic every quarter. I actually have read a classic. I just haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. Oh. So I read A Jest of God by Margaret Lawrence. Read it for my book club.
Like The Road is a classic, Ray.
It came out in 2006, though. Does that count?
It's like classic status now.
It's true. It's like a modern classic. I mean,
if you wanted to count that, I think you would be very allowed to. But just that's up to you.
I don't think I will. I feel like for me, if it came out after 2000, it just can't possibly be like an actual classic yet. It's everything's subjective when it comes to this discussion because something from the 70s could be a classic, or you could be like, no, that's not a classic. Anyway, but yeah, I read A Jest of God, which came out.
Okay.
When did it come out? Maybe the 60s? Anyway, yeah, I didn't talk about it because I just didn't really have that much to say about it. It was fine. So I've done that, though. I've read 1 classic. We're still in the first quarter of the year, so I could read another one, or if I'm really sticking to the guidelines of it has to be like 1 per quarter, then I'm just kind of waiting for the next quarter to roll over. Yeah. So that is looking good. I've read 1 fantasy book, which is good. I read Legends and Lattes. That was my fantasy book.
Yeah.
And basically to stay on track with this goal, I just need to read a fantasy book every 2 months. So within March and April, I should read another one. Hopefully it'll be the Samantha Shannon book. Hopefully my mood will come back around to that. Because that is the fantasy book I'm most excited to read right now. So so far, that is also looking good. And my book buying / reading goal is looking good as well. I have acquired 4 books. I guess technically with the Samantha Shannon book, it's now 5. But let's pretend that one doesn't exist for the sake of this argument. I've bought 4 books and then read 3 of them, which is pretty good. Okay, gotcha. So far, I'm like staying on top of that. First of all, by just not buying a lot of books. That has been the answer for me because I can't read as fast as I have been purchasing in the past. Like, it's just impossible to keep up, especially when you have all these other books that you're already excited for. You're never going to be solely reading the books you're buying. That's just impossible. It's not going to happen. Not. And then my final goal, which is reading my most owned authors, I have read 2 out of 7 so far. I read Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami, and then I've read 11/22/63 by Stephen King. So yeah, that's looking good as well. I kind of, one of my goals for March that I made and probably won't achieve now was to read a Brandon Sanderson book or a book by John Irving, because both of those are kind of like big books, and I was thinking, oh, if I read a Brandon Sanderson, that's a fantasy, but I haven't really done it yet, and I don't think I will. So yeah, that was just like a mental goal I had made for myself for March, but Stardew has derailed the plan. So that's not looking great. But yeah, as far as stats, I have read 24 books so far this year. A lot of them were comics. Good. I never mentioned I read all 10 sagas in March.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So,
okay, so
that kind of bulks up my reading quite a bit. And
I was going to say that's 24 already.
24 is, yeah, it's a lot, but 10 of them were comics, so I barely like count that. The total pages I've read so far this year is 6,114. See, that sounds crazy. Okay. When you put it like that, it sounds pretty crazy. And the other thing I've been tracking is the number of my unread books on my TBR. So at the beginning of the year, it was 212, and currently it is at 198. Although I guess it's 199 if you add the Samantha Shannon book. I haven't added it to my spreadsheet yet, and it's going to throw everything off. But yeah, let's just imagine it's at 198. So I feel like that's pretty good. I
feel like so far you are doing very well. Like,
thank you.
I remember, and of course now I'm glitching if it was last year or the year before, but when your goal was like to not buy books and stuff, and it was like February 1st,
it was
and you were
comical.
off the rails.
Yeah.
So this is feeling like a much stronger start goals-wise.
Don't you think? Like, I'm actually just controlling myself. I don't know what has changed. I don't know. Like, I think maybe just like telling myself you have to read those books. If you buy them, like, you've got to read them. And I'm actually sticking to it is kind of like, oh, okay, let's just take a step back. Maybe don't buy it. Maybe get it from the library. If you want to read it now, go get it. If you don't want to read it now, it can wait.
It's so
I don't know. Somehow it's something awakened in me, and it's for the better.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, I had 4 goals, and I have given them numeric values in order to help myself track them right now. Okay. I have just set this up while I was listening to you. So the first goal is to extend my bookshelves.
Yes.
We are at a 0 out of 4 on that one. 4 because I decided it's basically 4 steps. It's like way more steps than 4. Like, the process is going to be a lot of woodworking. Yeah. But it's basically like design it, install the brackets, install the wood, decorate the shelves. I'm like, those are basically the 4 steps.
Very basic.
But I've done 0 out of 4 out of this. And you know what's so funny, Raylene?
What?
A month ago, I filmed the introduction to the video I was like, hey everyone, today I'm going to be starting the blah, 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 right? And I was like, I'm going to start by attaching the brackets.
Yeah.
And so I literally, Raylene, I had the drill in here. I was going to start. And then I had an existential crisis because I realized, I was like, would it look better if the shelves went all the way across the wall? Originally, I was just thinking of extending them by the little corner. Yeah. But then I was like, but would it look really cool if it went all the way along or just part way? And then I started like literally psyching myself out. No. And I haven't done anything. It completely froze me up.
Have you made a decision?
We're at a 0 out of 4.
For what you're going to do?
No! I have no idea. Like, literally, I don't know what to do, Raylene. I don't know what to do. Okay, look, I'm going to show you right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of space there. It's true.
This is the wall. So I was just going to make them kind of go up like this and just take up that corner section.
Makes sense.
Next to the mantelpiece that people on the video version can see. But now I'm like, what if the shelves went over top of the mantle as well? And then there was shelves on the other side too. Like an entire new wall of books.
You want to hear my opinion? I think that would be cool, but I also think it might be too much.
Too much.
I think it's too much.
Would it be like a cool library? Maybe.
I feel like the mantle being there kind of makes me not want that for you, though. I feel like if there was no mantle and if it was just wall of books, I'd say 1000% yes. Having the mantle there makes me feel like, I don't know, it'll just be a little too wild, especially if there's like tiny shelves and then long shelves, and then you'd have no space on the wall for art.
I know, but I have so many other walls in it. But this is the problem, Elaine. I have fought myself in every direction on this entire opinion 400 times. So I really need to make a decision. I'm starting to lose it over here. But for now, the problem is we're at a 0 out of 4 on that one.
I see.
Next up, my goals are going really bad, by the way. I should have prefaced this. Like, you're doing really good. I am not doing really good. Goal number 2 was to read 12 classics. We're at 0 out of 12.
Oh, no.
We're at a 0 out of 12. And I guess I picked 12 because the idea was like one-ish a month.
Yeah. You're going to have to go on a marathon. But you know what you could do? Sorry to interrupt your goals again, but you could read the rest of the Anne of Green Gables series.
I've thought about this. I've literally thought about this. I've thought about this a lot where I'm like, that would totally count.
Absolutely.
And then I could just have fun and go kind of blast through some.
Yeah.
Number 3. Read 3 biographies. We're at a 0 out of 3 on that.
I mean, you started 1 or 2 though, right?
Yes, I have. I'm like partway through the Agatha Christie one.
Yeah.
And then
Jane Austen,
and then I went on my trip.
Oh.
And then I went on my trip, and so I left it here because I was like, I'm not going to travel with a big book. And then I started reading something else.
Can you get it on your e-reader?
I've thought about this. Maybe I should try. And then my 4th goal is to visit all of the bookshops in Nova Scotia, and we're at an 8% completion rate. We're at 3 out of 36, and I feel very good about that because when I said this goal, I think I even said it in the original podcast, this is mainly going to be a summer project.
Right.
I really envisage myself driving around every weekend, going to different bookshops in different towns around Nova Scotia.
Yeah, day trips.
Throughout the summer and fall. Yeah. And like in the winter, that's just not as fun at all. So I hit up 3 bookshops when we went to Lunenburg for our anniversary, and that was really fun. And then when I get back from my upcoming England trip, it'll be, I think, warmer spring, and then I think that's when it's going to start happening. But that one I don't feel any pressure about.
Yeah.
I'm feeling okay about that. Stats-wise, this is so funny. Our reading is just so completely different. I have read 6 books.
Hey!
So that's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
That's not terrible. 3 of them are Japanese translated books, which is half of my reading so far this year. My favorite statistic is that the last 2 books I've read have been on my e-reader. I love my e-reader.
You're obsessed with it. I love it.
I'm obsessed with my e-reader. Also, all of the books are books that I've either bought this year or last year.
That's
the
cool.
order goes last year, this year, last year, this year, last year, this year.
I love that.
And then also rating-wise, I've given 4 of the books I've read 4 stars. 1 book, 5 stars, and 1 book, 3 stars. The Woman in the Purple Skirt got 3 stars.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I guess that's pretty cool stats. I haven't read anything under 3 stars yet this year.
Okay, I didn't know what you were going to... I felt like We Spread was a 3-star experience, Yeah.
It was, for sure. For sure.
There you go. That's our little update on how our stats and stuff are going. And we'll definitely do another check-in like in the summertime at some point. Let you know where I'm at.
How those bookshelves are going.
What's funny too is like if I just like in April built the shelves and read 3 biographies, I'd be like off to the races. Life would be good.
It's true. You just have to dedicate yourself to the goal.
Dedicate myself to the goal.
That's my advice for you. Dedicate yourself to the goal and get rid of those weasels.
Oh, those weasels. Maybe I'll keep them forever. The problem is they're so cute.
Have you seen one?
Damn. No, I haven't seen one
Damn.
yet, but I hear them. I really do.
They
hear
sound
them.
cute.
I love them. Okay. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. God, I have to get rid of them.
I mean, I love them. Never even
we
heard
can
or
all
seen
love
them.
together. Weasels in the basement. All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, watching or listening to the podcast. And thanks to everyone who's subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's been very exciting to see that little baby grow. He's going strong.
Big baby.
We are now going to go record Movie Tub, which is our Patreon only mini podcast where we talk about the movies and shows that we've been watching lately. If you want to check it out and support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/booksunbound.
Yeah.
Or follow us on Instagram, because that's another good way to support us. And it's our best way of sharing news and stuff and updates with you. All right, we're going to go do that, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.